very pleased and honored to have legendary bass player and songwriter from the Sex Pistols.
I don't like that word legendary. It means you're getting on a bit in years.
Glenn Matlock is here as our featured interview. Glenn is a founding member and a songwriter from the seminal punk rock band, the Sex Pistols. He's also played with some of the top legends in rock and roll, from Mick Jones to Iggy Pop to the Faces, currently right now. Now he fronts his own driving rock band, the Philistines. Hey, Glenn, thank you so much for joining us today in the interview.
That's my pleasure, and also you're the first American who said Philistines properly. You normally go Philistines, so I'm impressed. That's good. We're off to a good start.
Thank you. Well, we're into it. So we've been listening to your music for a while now. I mean, I've been listening to your music since I was a teenager, and the Rolling Stone magazine named "Nevermind the Bollocks" as one of the top 50 rock albums of all time. And as a musical songwriter from the Sex Pistols, how does that make you feel?
Kind of sort of justified, I suppose, really. There's been a lot of sort of rubbish that's surrounded the whole Pistols myth, but when people kind of give it the acclaim after all these years still, yeah, it's kind of a good place to be, really. But beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so if they want to put it up there, great. But I think it's a pretty good record. There's some good tunes on it, and there's some good...
Can you take us back at all about at that time period in terms of writing one of the original songs, like, Pretty Vacant or something like that? Did you say, hey, lads, I've got to check this out, or did John Lydon write the words first? Or?
Well, no, I mean, Pretty Vacant is my music and lyrics, that one particular song. Most of the songs are sort of my music and John's lyric, or some of them was like Steve's music and John's lyric. The first 3 singles, though, were my music. I don't know, it's kind of, I mean, there's not a whole bunch of songs in the Sex Pistols catalogue, so we kind of took every idea we could, really, Not many people turned up their nose at something.
So did you write music like in a recording rehearsal studio type, or like at someone's flat or something, or? I used to kind of have a beat up old acoustic guitar at home. I think it was a Hofner Senator. And would knock ideas around. So then we had our own rehearsal place, and once you got in a rehearsal place, it was like, anybody got any ideas? And, well, I got this one, what's that one? And through working that out at home, you kind of knew what was beginning to work a little bit, but you couldn't always, what you envisaged in your head with a loud guitar and drums, it didn't necessarily sound like that until you played it with a band, So there was a bit of, what was there? Yeah, there was a bit of experimentation kind of going on, but we were very limited in our styles, but proud of it, and we just wanted to keep it as simple as possible, People say, well, there's no guitar solos in the Pistol songs. Well, good, we never wanted there to be any, You were very conscious at the time that you were making a statement that you were doing something really different, at that time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we tried to copy what was going on in London at the time, we would have been a jazz funk band, so can you imagine that, It was quite a lame period. I mean, there'd been stuff beforehand which had been pretty good. The Spiders from Mars and Transformer and Roxy Music, but that kind of been and gone a little bit by then. Those people sort of, as soon as any English bands have any success, they're off around the world or touring the States. So you can't necessarily go and see them in your local club. There was a thing called pub rock going on. A couple of bands came through that, were all right, but it was a bit sort of low rent,
Right.
So we just thought we'd do what we want to do. But it's a generational thing and all, every year or two, there's a new bunch of kids come through and they want to play a new bunch of kids' music, and that's what we was doing. But I think we were kind of a bit more astute than most. And it's funny as well how the English bands, that I think we were the first of the English bands, like the Clash and the Damned and bands, Buzzcocks came after us. Not long after us, but they came after us. But we started doing our thing, and when the Ramones came to England for the first time, I don't think they'd had a record out by then, and we went to see them as a band, and it was quite taken aback at how similar they were to us, even though we hadn't heard any of the records and they hadn't heard any of ours. And I think everybody got fed up with the same set of influences at the same time. It was at the beginning of a global village kind of thing, I suppose.
Oh, that was cool. So you checked out the Ramones back in the day, downtown New York. And,
yeah, and wherever we could, Jonathan Richman. I mean,
well, today you play a little bit with Clem Burke from Blondie.
Every now and then, if something comes up, we did have a project in New York going on with me, him, El Slick, and a guy called Kenan Duffy, who's an English friend of mine who lives in New York, and who's not a bad singer, but he's also a fashion designer. But nobody was ever in the same place at the same time, so it kind of helps with bands, that you're all in the same room together.
Right, right. So are you technology now to sending files over the internet or anything like that yet?
Well, you can do that, but there's nothing like if you're going to be in a rock band, there's being in a band in the room together and playing, or on stage together. But I've got a project coming up with Clem later on in the year. I think we're going to do some gigs in Australia with a guy called Gary Twin and a guy called James Stevenson who plays guitar with me in the Philistines. So, everybody's not interchangeable, but everybody knows each other. And
right.
Sometimes, when you get a bit older, it's good to do different things for fun. It keeps your interest level high. And
right.
I think you've got to, I don't know, is it multitask, is that the word? You've got to do a bit of this, that and the other these days.
So is that Slinky Vagabond?
No, I don't even know what we're going to call it yet. So it's not Slinky Vagabonds, it's something else. But, I'll play with Clem any day of the week. He's great.
Oh, yeah, he's awesome.
He's great.
So you're also playing right now with the Faces reunion. You guys are touring England.
I'm just about to, at the end of this, in fact, on Friday, we're going to start rehearsing again, and we got a few shows through Europe, and then we're actually doing the Fuji Festival in Japan, and I thought we were just on the bill, but it turns out we're headlining. So how about that? I mean, my all-time favourite band headlining a 100,000 people festival. It's great. Life is good.
That's huge. That's wonderful. That's what I was going to ask you. What's it like to play, actually, with one of your all-time favorite groups? When you look to your left on stage, and there's Ron Wood.
It's pretty good, really, But, I mean, I think as well as me getting something out of it, I think I give them as much as I get from them, because I've sort of dug the Faces for so long. I learned to play playing along to their records, and I've always dug Ronnie Lane as a bass player and a character, and I think I'm cut from the same cloth somehow, and I think the guys think that as well. So, I don't try.
It comes across. We watched videos, and it really comes across.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, Ron would have got, as far as I understand it, he got the gig in the Rolling Stones not because he was the best guitarist, but because he was the right bloke. The right guy, and that's why I think I've got the gig. And not that I'm a bad bass player, but you don't have to be that technically proficient to do it, and you can.
So Bill Wyman was your predecessor briefly, wasn't he?
Bill Wyman was right. Well, I saw him play with Bill, and I think Bill's a great bass player, but he wasn't right for the Faces, I mean,
right.
I've read some review, and I would dig this, because it's kind of painted me with glowing colours, but it said Glenn Matlock was right for the Faces, because he, as far as the bass concerns, he mends their broken spine.
That's great.
Hey, Glenn, quick
question. Pretty cool thing, isn't it?
Hey, Glenn, this is Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Doing good. Really big fan. Although, unlike Rick, I'm not a bass guitarist or a songwriter. I just really enjoy talent when I hear it, and you certainly have that. Tell me a little bit about the decision that went into bringing Mick Hucknall in as the lead vocalist.
Well, the Faces did a show before I was involved. It was like a PRS. It's like your kind of BASCA awards thing or something. In England, they got some Lifetime Achievement Award, and they didn't have a singer, and they had different singers. They did 3 songs, and Mick Hucknall was one of them. And now, Ian McLagan was asking me to come down. I said, well, who's singing? He said, one of the girls out, the Spice Girls, was going to sing a song, and Andy Fairweather and Mick Hucknall. I said, Mick Hucknall. And he said, just come down and check it out, because he wanted me to meet the other guys. It was Mac who was pushing for me to get in the band. And I was pretty impressed, actually. He's got a great soul voice. So there you go. And I think the danger would have been is to try and get somebody to blindly try and copy Rod Stewart and fail miserably, and it looked like a cabaret band. And it don't with Mick. He's his own man, and he got a lot of stick for doing it. When it was announced, and he still did it anyway because he loves the group. So I think that's kind of brave of him. And he's great. You might hear him sing Rod Right to Go Blind. Everybody would love Rod Stewart to do it, but he's not doing it for whatever reason. I'm not really party to that. Don't want to be party to that. It'd be great if he did it.
Are they? Yeah, I was going to ask you if they were playing any if you guys are playing any Simply Red or songs.
No, it's just purely Faces. We don't even do any Rod Stewart songs. Well, we do Faces songs that are written by Rod Stewart, obviously, but it's just all stuff from Faces albums. So
okay.
That's kind of cool, you know.
Definitely. Now, I have another question for you. You switch up, from a lot of different styles of music over the span of your career. Now, in your head, do you have to, as you go on stage to perform this different type of music, do you sort of have to say, okay, I'm not playing like I was in this band, I'm going this style, and just sort of keep focused?
No, I dispute that. I always play like I play like, and it's just kind of coincidence that every band I play in, the bass playing is kind of sort of quite similar, really, you know. I've never been in a jazz funk band. I wouldn't do that. But all the people I've been involved with is because they dig my style of bass playing. And yeah, I don't think I've ever played any different kinds of music, to be honest.
Well, who were I know you're into R&B and listening to stuff that was big in the U.S., rhythm and blues.
Yeah, like proper R&B, yeah. Rhythm and blues.
Did you know any of the bass players at the time that were big influences?
Tamla Motown was really big in England in the 60s. There was this, in fact, I had a live sort of show a few nights back over the weekend. There's this thing on called Meltdown that Ray Davis has kind of curated, and he recreated this TV show we had called Ready, Steady, Go, and it was one of the best pop shows I've ever seen. And on it, you used to get all the Tamla Motown artists. And that kind of style of bass playing is really quite, sort of deep within my DNA now. And then I dug people like McCartney as a bass player. I don't know if I quite like the Frog song or Well Can Tire, but, his bass playing is cool. John Entwistle, Ronnie Lane, kind of that's about it, really. And then a bit later on I got into, there's a guy called Holger Cusico who's in a band called Can. I like the bass player who's in a Plastic Ono band, Klaus Woolman, who hasn't really done a lot apart from play with John Lennon a few times.
Oh, yeah.
And he's cool.
Did we just get a Plastic Ono band reference in here?
You did. that first Plastic Ono band album is great. I think it's still one of the most modern sounding records ever. And the bass playing is fantastic. And it just sounds like he's jamming along, but it works. You should check it out. The bass is great on it.
Is it true that you may not
like... It's gone all quiet. You don't believe me.
No, that's true. But is it true that, because you were just talking about influences and whatnot. So in the Pistols, did they say, he likes, the Beatles, that's one of the reasons why it's not working out right now?
No, that was a bullshit story that was put out by Malcolm McLaren to make him look like he was more in charge than he was. No, the common ground between me, Steve and Paul was always the Faces. That was we didn't want to sound like the Faces, but that was our starting point. John hated them, but immediately there was a good frisson there. There was a good bit of friction.
That's great friction to build off of. Wow, all that ties it all together. Either a thesis or one guy likes him, the other guys don't like him, or whatever. Wow, That's cool. So,
I think what came afterwards, as soon as we appeared, there was lots of punk bands were formed, and you can imagine them in their local youth club putting up a sign, we're a punk band, we're punks, we're looking for a punk to join our punk band, please come and join our punk band, oh, by the way, you must be a punk. It was very kind of narrow. But the Pistols, we had a whole set of influences. There's a whole lot, in that album, there's a whole lot of stuff that's in there that's been brought from somewhere else. Now, you wouldn't necessarily know it, but there's a depth and a breadth to it that I think is very
the underpinnings of the songwriting is really good. It's classic musical structure, and it's really good classic songwriting. People still listen to those tunes like they're fresh. How does that make you feel? Kids today are still digging the sex.
Well, I think it's cool, and I think a lot of that, not all of it, but a lot of it was to do with me, and I think I gave John a vehicle to hang his kind of, really hard-hitting, angst-ridden, clever lyrics on. John's best mate at the time always said, well, if John had had his way, it would have been unlistenable. So, there you go.
Wow. How does it feel to have a song on Guitar Hero?
My kids like it.
Pretty vacant.
It's a buzz. What's wrong with that? It's fine. That's fine.
Pretty Vacant's on Guitar Hero. That must be a nice rush.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, I think, they kind of want to loop a little riff around, and that riff at the beginning is just prime for being looped around. I mean, the one it should be is a I've never seen it as when your telephone rings, what do you call it? A ringtone.
Right.
Yeah, and in fact, I used to have a phone because I couldn't get it as a ringtone. I actually programmed it in. You could write something in, and it went off. And I was with Alan McGee, the guy who used to run Creation. He went, his Scots bloke went, that's Pretty Vacant. That's fantastic. And it was, yeah. But it was actually in the wrong key because you couldn't get an octave in A. You had to be an E or something. But I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges I find these days, music, on crappy speakers for computers and phones, we're in charge of the bottom end of the spectrum. How do you get the bass signal to carry through?
Well, that's it. How do you do that? And lots of times, when you're driving in the car, there's no bass on it. And if you're making a record, you want to check it in the car, and you're driving, and you think, bass ain't loud enough. And then you lift it up a bit, and then it is too loud. It's a fine thing. But it's kind of weird, on an old transistor radio, but going back to the Tamla stuff, you used to really hear those bass lines coming through, and that's what I dig. And if you're in a club and everybody's talking, you can't necessarily hear all the tinny stuff, but I always picked up on the bass. That's what kind of grooved me.
Right. It's great. Yeah. So, what was your first bass? Do you remember?
Well, I had a bass, it looked like a Fender Mustang, but it wasn't even that. It was purple and it had a stripe on it, but I think it was a guitar that somebody took the 6 strings off of and put 4 on. And then I remember going to see the Pistols, but before we was the Sex Pistols, and they said, right, you got the gig, but, have you ever seen that movie, Crocodile Dundee?
Oh, yeah.
When he gets mugged in New York and they pull a knife on him and he goes, that's not a knife, and he pulls out his big sort of Bowie knife and he goes, that's a knife. Well, that's what happened with the guitar. They said, well, that's not a bass guitar, and they'd reached under the bed and they got this guitar from somewhere. Don't ask why, and it was a Fender Precision, and I ended up using that. So that was kind of cool. But I've had a few different basses over the years. Rickenbacker was kind of all right, but it's a bit too fiddly to play. I got 3 Precisions, and somebody's just laid this bass on me, which looks like Ronnie Lane's Zematis, but it isn't. It's a GTZ or something like that it's called. So I might use that with the Faces. And what else have I had? I had a really nice Les Paul Jr. shaped Gibson bass. Is it EB3 with a banjo tuning pegs on the back?
Right.
But it didn't sound great, but it fitted in the back of my Sunbeam Alpine sports car. That was the reason I got that one. And then I had a Dan Armstrong, one of those slider pickup ones, which is kind of cool. But I've always been a Precision man, really. And in fact, now I've got a really nice old 61 Precision, but I don't like taking it out because it's worth a lot of money. I've got a 62 reissue, which sounds great for recording, but is a bit kind of heavy. Yeah. And I've got this Mexican Precision, which sounds fine, as long as you know how to twiddle the knobs on your bass amp, and you can make it sound as good as the other one. It's kind of nice and light, and you can sling it around. It's always in tune when you take it out of the case. What more do you want? And it's black. And I put a tortoiseshell pickguard on it, so I customised it.
Oh, cool.
Oh, and it's also customised on the bottom because my mate was helping me with it, and it was in a zip bag, and he didn't realise you had to put the zip all the way round. So when I picked it up, and I had something else on the other end, I could feel it going, but could the fuck I stop it, and it just slid out and bashed all on the bottom, so all the lacquer's kind of crazed, but that's all right, didn't do it deliberately.
Sure. So your
at least I know which one's my one now. It's the one with the bashed up bottom bit.
Yeah, that's right. They're going for quite a pretty penny too, the older ones.
Yeah. That's why you don't want to have somebody nick it.
That's right. So, have you toyed around with 5 strings at all? Are you into that scene at all?
That's a bit too complicated for me now, really.
And,
it would be handy sometimes, if you want to pitch it down a little bit. But then, if basically you have a B on the bottom, don't you? But it just makes you think, because it's a little bit harder sometimes to not, if you want to change the key of a song, you can put a different slant on it. So,
right.
Yeah, I think the bottom is low enough.
Are you using any effects?
Nope.
Straight in.
A tuner is quite good effect. I always use my fingers. I never use a pick. You get that nice warm sound on it. I think proper bass players use their fingers and not a plectrum.
Aha,
but,
yeah.
And the ones who use a plectrum would say that you've got to use a plectrum. I don't know. Bass playing ain't rocket science. But everything, all the bass I play is always kind of like a vehicle to get the song across. I think that's the important thing.
So when you're starting to write a song, you feel most comfortable holding the bass in your hands and kind of coming up with the groove?
Well, no, I tend to write on a guitar. Well, in fact, I tend to write a song when I'm walking down the street and you see something and you get a lyrical idea and a tune comes into your head. And I think unless you've got a good idea in the first place, I always then go to the guitar and start working out my idea. Rarely does it come from jamming.
Huh.
You know?
Yeah.
No, I think most of my songs have come that way. The only thing is you end up with lots of walking paste songs.
Right. Do you imagine the drums next? I mean, linking up with the drummer, or not so much? More of the lyrics?
I think the lyrics are pretty important. I mean, it's a song, and you're supposed to be singing about something or other. I mean, it don't have to be earth-shatteringly important, but it's just got to be clear and well-defined. Yeah. But, I've never been a great jammer. I mean, I think some people are. It's just whatever rocks your boat, really. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just it don't necessarily work for me. But then sometimes you can bring half an idea in and then you just throw it in with the guys you're playing with and it sort of takes on a life of itself and goes somewhere else. That's cool, too, I think
so are you writing
the end result is
Right.
Sorry?
Oh, you're writing also from you play guitar obviously now with the Philistines and
Yeah, well, I mean on the album I do both. I went in and laid down the rhythm tracks on rhythm guitar with me and the drummer, and then I overdubbed all the bass parts. But live, I like playing bass when somebody else is singing. When I'm singing, I prefer to play rhythm guitar because you can put on more of a show that way, really, I think, And also, I wouldn't say I was the best lead guitarist in the world. In fact, I would say I was one of the worst. But I'm not a bad rhythm player, and it gives the other guy, James, more room to kind of manoeuvre, really. I think the danger is if you've got two good guitarists in a band, they kind of, I don't know, they try and cancel each other out sometimes. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. But really looking forward to playing bass with the Faces. That's cool.
Yeah, that's tremendous. That's huge. So is Kenny Jones playing drums?
Kenny Jones is playing drums, Ian McLagan on keyboards, Ron Wood on guitar, Ron Wood's son, Jesse's going to be playing second guitar, she's doing a few block calls here and there, and Hucknall on vocals. It sounds good,
Oh, I was going to ask you, when you're playing the tunes, the Faces, you're pretty much staying true 100% to the original, or are you allowed to embellish a little bit?
Well, I think there's some pretty good bass lines there, and it's kind of my version of those bass lines. I don't play them, if you got a spectrograph and analyse them, they're more likely slightly different, but it's how I kind of remember them, with a few little twiddly bits of my own thrown in. But, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's some pretty good bass lines there, so I'm quite happy just... and that's what makes it sound like the Faces. If you play something totally different, it's not going to be the Faces.
That's right. Yeah, Ronnie Lane was one of the best. So.
Yeah.
Now, the Philistines now you've done a lot of different projects over the years. Is Philistines sort of going to be an ongoing thing for all new?
I'd like it to be. I mean, the Philistines is basically a vehicle for the songs that I write now, and that's what it is. I'm not the best businessman in the world, I must admit. We got a show coming up this Thursday. We just got a new single coming out called Hey Mister, and it's like a launch for that kind of thing. We're going to do some more shows later on in the year. I've got a massive tour lined up, but if something comes up, we'll do it. But it's fun. It's a really good vibe. I mean, I picked up a lot from doing I mean, what I think about playing with the Faces is they just seem to have a laugh about everything, always, all the time, and that's kind of cool. I've done my. Everybody love me, a miserable kind of bit, teenage angst. That's fine as well, but I've done that. I'm older now. I just want to have some fun, really. But in a cool way. Not in an idiotic way, in a cool way,
Right. Hey, Mister.
Hey, Mister, yeah.
Hey, Mister. So, what about, speaking of Hey Mister, it's sort of a down-tempo, almost, it's got almost like a gospel. To me, I kind of heard that in it.
That's kind of cool. I mean, my yardstick for that was, it's my version of a bluesy kind of song, and, but, I dig All the Young Dudes, and I also dig, Joe Cocker's version of With a Little Help from My Friends. So it's got, if you know that when you're listening to it, it's got a bit of that in it, somehow.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not a nick, it's a homage to. There's a difference.
That's right. I didn't think, oh my God, he's copying one of these other songs. No, it was real original.
I was, but it's kind of it's not on the album because it was written afterwards. But I think it's a good track. So.
I know that's Jeff's favorite on your new from your new recordings. Mine actually is he's a single, Born Running. I think is your main tune, right?
Yeah, that's the title track of the album. Yeah.
That's yeah. That's. Go ahead.
And when Rick mentioned that he heard a little bit of the gospel in there, and you talked about the blues, I got a big smile on my face when you mentioned All the Young Dudes, because first time I listened to it, it's like I hear a little bit of that in there as well.
Well, you're supposed to, so that's kind of cool, But in fact, I got a couple of shots. We're going to be going to New York in September, and we're going to open up for Ian Hunter. So the wheel turns full circle, and I've got some chick Carol backing singers on it, and one of them is Tracy Hunter.
Yeah, Tracy Hunter. That's Ian Hunter's daughter, right? She's in your band.
It's Ian Hunter's daughter, and I've also got Maggie Ronson, Mick's sister, is in the band, and a girl called Elizabeth Westwood, an American girl who's married to James, a guitarist, who was in a band called Westworld. And it's a kind of a loose thing, and when there's enough money for us to all go and do it, we all go and do it, and when there isn't, we go and do we're a four-piece rock band, So. It's a move, but just not precious about anything, You want to do that? All right, come on, let's go and do it. We'll have a laugh, But they're all good singers and they're all friends, and I kind of like those people being involved because it's a link to what I dug beforehand, And I met Maggie because when I did the Rich Kids, Mick Ronson produced a band, I met him there. He was a great guy. He's a real laugh, and he's fantastic talent. And
I didn't know that. I didn't know. Mick Ronson produced. That's Mick, of course, from Spiders from Mars, Iggy Pop, and all that. But wow, that's.
And that Transformer album, he co-produced that. Did all the strings for Walk on the Wild Side.
I didn't know that. That's wild. That's cool. So you're going to ask something?
Well, actually, I was going to sort of throw a little note in there for all the BassGuitar.com listeners. With the interview, we will be posting links to the Hey Mister song and several other tracks, so you guys can check that out as well.
Sounds good to me. Good man.
I was reading one time you came to the States, actually, in New York, and you were backstage, and you were hanging out with Iggy Pop, I guess, and then you saw Debbie Harry backstage. And she was
but I was playing, the first time I came to the States, I was playing with Iggy in 1979. And we did a coast-to-coast tour, and we played, I think one of my all-time favourite gigs I've done is playing with Iggy, and we played at the Palladium in New York, and it was Halloween night, and the whole audience was in fancy dress, Halloween costume. The Cramps supported us, and backstage was Debbie Harry dressed as a witch. So that was a good start to America, for a bloke from the Hour Road in London.
Oh man, definitely. Speaking of which, you're from London. So are we talking Fulham, Arsenal, or are you?
No, not Arsenal. I'm from a place called the Harrow Road, which runs from Paddington to Harrow. It's near Portobello Roadway, Ladbroke Grove. It's very hip. Mick Jones had a song on one of his albums called Harrow Road. So there you go.
So are you a Spurs supporter then, or?
No, I'm a Queen's Park Rangers supporter. And Queen's Park Rangers are from a place called Queen's Park, which is part of the Harrow Road. So, you got to know your London geography, really. But I'm a West London boy.
That's cool. And other famous Patagonians, who do you identify most with? Prince Harry?
Famous Patagonians? What Patagonians?
I made that up. I don't know. People from Paddington?
Oh, no, Paddingtonians. Patagonians in South America. You nitwit.
I mean, yeah, I mispronounced it. Paddingtonians, it is. Yeah.
Paddingtonians, right?
Prince Harry.
Yeah, I think they might have been born there. Yeah. No, it's in the
Elvis
same hospital.
Costello.
Yeah.
And Joe Cole.
Joe Cole. Well, there you go. Yeah. Maybe so. I don't know.
Did you ever kick the ball around with? I guess you probably hadn't with Rod Stewart. Or you would have if he was singing right now, but.
I nearly did once, a few years, well, a long time ago, when we was rich kids. We did some charity five-a-side thing at Wembley, and yeah, it was like sort of pop stars with a professional footballer in each team. Well, sorry, a professional soccer player in each team. And if we got through, we would have played Rod Stewart's side. And he was pretty good, actually, but we didn't get through to the next round. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, so is there, so you've got, right now you're rehearsing with the Faces, and the Philistines are playing out, and you have some plans, it sounds like, to possibly go to New York, which is great for your U.S. fans.
Yeah.
And is there a website for the Philistines that you want to let us know about?
Yeah, there's a couple, actually. There's Glenn Matlock at grapewire.com, and there's also the Philistines UK.com, and then there's also sex-pistols.net, which is the Sex Pistols site, but it also has a link to all the various different things all the guys are doing separately as well. So there's no excuse not to kind of look it up. And then, of course, there's Hey Mr. and Dawn Running available on iTunes. So there you go.
Along with some of the musical questions that the BassGuitar.com fans had put forward, there were some non-musical questions involved, so I'd like to fire a couple of those over at you.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Now, if you had never picked up a bass guitar, never walked down the path of the musician and the songwriter, what would you have been?
Well, actually, before I joined the Pistols, or took the Pistols seriously, I was at art school, and I got in to do a degree in fine art painting. Now, whether I was any good, I don't know, but I got in. But in the summer holidays, I decided not to go and join a rock and roll band. But I'm not likely to pursue that. Whether I'll still be doing it 30 years later is another matter. That's a possibility.
Another question was, prior to taking the stage for a performance, do you have any rituals or routines that you like to go through prior to playing for these?
Yeah, I always like to be the last one to relieve my bladder.
Nice.
And if somebody goes after me, I have to try and go again. But that's these days. A long time ago, it was very different. But I'm a bit more clean living these days. So there you go.
That's great. That's great. Well, Glenn, on that note, that high note there, or that low note,
bass note, yeah. Bass note, B-A-S-E, right? See, look, what a good pun.
Bass note, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd like to. We really appreciate you taking the time with us today, and maybe next time.
My pleasure.
Maybe we could see you in New York and get a real video interview with you or something.
Yeah, I hope so. Where are you guys based?
We're in sunny Boca Raton, Florida, actually.
Right. Well,
so if you ever want to, you ever want to come down and catch some rays and play some gigs down here, we got plenty of cool rock clubs.
Yeah. Okay. I did actually play there a couple of years back now. I did a little acoustic thing at the Art Basel thing in Miami.
All right.
It was kind of funny. This guy, I was bending down tuning my guitar, and the guy said, "Hey man, there's Steve here." And there's a guy who'd been on before me called Steve, and I said, "Yeah, he's over there." So I saw his legs walking off, and I was still tuning up my guitar, and a minute or two later, his legs came back, and he said, "No man, Steve." I said, "Yeah, Steve's over there." And he said, "No, Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols." And I thought, "Hang on, who's this?" And I looked up, and it was John McEnroe. I said, "The only bloke here from the Sex Pistols is me." And he went, "Oh shit, man, Steve's my friend." And I said, "Well, sorry to let you down, but there you go."
Well, John's the guitar player, as you know, so.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you want to jam with you or something.
Maybe next time.
That's fantastic. All right, well, Glenn, it's really been a pleasure. I really appreciate it. It's not every day you get to talk to, one of your heroes, and I'm a bass player going way back. First thing I ever did, and so one of the first tunes that I learned were one of your tunes. So.
Oh, which one was that one?
Well, God Save the Queen, man.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Good.
And Anarchy, we covered 3 of the songs, and the Ramones we were playing back in the day, and all the good stuff. But you're an influence, to a lot of musicians, and also you guys influence pop culture in general. So,
it would seem that way, yes. Yeah. How wacky is that? Yeah. Good.
I, for one, Glenn, am really looking forward to hearing more and more music from the Philistines in the future. So good luck with the band on that.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, tour the U.S., man. That'd be great.
Oh, I would love to.
Come on down to Florida, Glenn. We'll make sure the place is packed with scantily clad Florida women.
Sounds good to me.